When you sift through the dusty pages of cinematic history, you don't just find a movie. You find the birth of a legend and the story of a man who became a prisoner of his own character. It was the blistering summer of 1956, and on the border of Utah and Arizona, the towering red monoliths of Monument Valley stood as silent witnesses to a man's cry for vengeance. That man was none other than John Wayne. But this time, the cheerful, patriotic hero we knew was gone. In his place stood Ethan Edwards, a man whose rage burned hotter than the desert sun and whose heart was as dark as the shadows cast by the valley floor. The Searchers is widely regarded by film critics today as the greatest Western ever made. But what makes this film a masterpiece isn't just the breathtaking landscapes or John Ford's flawless direction. It was the way John Wayne poured his own internal storms into the soul of Ethan Edwards. Wayne wasn't just acting. He was wrestling with the ghosts of his past and the changing face of 1950s America. On the very first day he stepped onto the set, director John Ford looked at him and simply asked, "Are you ready, Duke?" Wayne replied with nothing more than a stoic nod. From that moment on, John Wayne was gone, and Ethan, fueled by a cold, relentless fire, took his place. During the first weeks of filming, temperatures in the valley soared to 115 degrees. While the younger cast members scrambled for shade, Wayne stood tall in the middle of sandstorms, clad in a heavy wool coat with his rifle gripped tight. Ford, in one of his famous psychological ploys, intentionally kept Wayne waiting for hours in the harshest conditions. He wanted to capture that look of exhaustion, bitterness, and raw edge on Wayne's face. Wayne never complained. As the grit filled his eyes and sweat poured down his weathered skin, he just stared at the horizon. This was how the famous Searcher's stare was born, a moment of pure determination that would be etched into the golden books of cinema history. Ethan Edwards spent 5 years tracking the raiders who took his niece, losing his own humanity in the process. John Wayne felt this descent so deeply that he barely spoke to anyone between takes, sitting alone in a corner with his script. At the time, Wayne's health was beginning to show the first signs of wear and tear. Years of heavy smoking and relentless work were catching up to his lungs. Yet, he refused a stunt double for every scene, leading the charge on horseback himself. Even when he took a hard fall and bruised his ribs, he refused to stop. "This man's pain is bigger than my ribs," he told the crew, and he kept writing. The relationship between John Wayne and John Ford was more like a battlefield than a creative partnership. Ford was a taskmaster, a man who believed that greatness could only be forged under pressure. He would often humiliate Wayne in front of the entire crew, questioning his acting ability and mocking his walk. But Wayne understood something the others didn't. Ford was carving a masterpiece, and he needed Wayne to be the granite. During the filming of The Searchers, this tension reached a boiling point. In the middle of the desert, surrounded by the Navajo people who revered Wayne as a brother, the two giants of cinema would have staring contests that lasted until the sun dipped below the mesas. There was a specific scene where Wayne had to lift a young girl while on horseback, a feat that required immense core strength and balance. Despite his agonizing rib injury from a previous fall, Wayne didn't utter a word. He gripped the saddle, gritted his teeth, and performed the take over and over until Ford was satisfied. The crew watched in silence, knowing they were witnessing a level of grit that surpassed the script. It was during these moments that the line between the actor and the character blurred into non-existence. To the Navajo extras on set, he wasn't a movie star. He was the Duke, a man who commanded respect through pure, silent endurance. As the production moved deeper into the wilderness, the isolation began to take a toll. Wayne began to adopt Ethan Edwards' cynical worldview, often retreating into himself. He was obsessed with the authenticity of the Western myth. He insisted that his spurs, his hat, and even the way he handled his Winchester felt lived in. A man who's been in the saddle for 5 years doesn't look like he just walked out of a tailor shop, he famously told the costume department. Every smudge of dirt on his face, every tear in his clothing was a deliberate choice to show the audience the cost of a life spent in pursuit of vengeance. But the most legendary secret of the film lies in its final, iconic shot. As Ethan stands in the doorway, framed by the darkness of the house while the family celebrates inside, Wayne makes a subtle gesture. He reaches across his chest and grabs his right elbow with his left hand. This wasn't in the script. It was a silent tribute to his mentor and friend, Harry Carey, who had recently passed away. In that single, unscripted moment, Wayne captured the essence of the entire film. The loneliness of a man who has fulfilled his duty but no longer has a home to return to. He was a man out of time, a ghost of the frontier standing at the threshold of a new world that had no place for him. To understand the sheer magnitude of The Searchers, one must look beyond the screen and into the very soul of the 1950s. At a time when America was polishing its suburban image, John Wayne and John Ford were dragging the nation back into the red dirt of its violent origins. This wasn't just a story about a missing girl. It was a mirror held up to the darker side of the American dream. Ethan Edwards, portrayed with a haunting intensity by Wayne, represented a side of the frontier that people wanted to forget. The obsession, the racial tension, and the uncompromising brutality of survival. When the film premiered, the audience didn't just see a hero. They saw a man who had become the very thing he was hunting. This complexity is what transformed Wayne from a movie star into a cultural icon of profound depth. The legacy of this film didn't just stop at the box office. It rippled through the decades, influencing legends like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and George Lucas. Scorsese once remarked that in every frame of The Searchers, you can feel the weight of history and the personal cost of justice. Wayne's performance changed the language of acting in westerns forever. He proved that a man of few words could convey a lifetime of sorrow with just a tilt of his hat or a squint of his eyes against the sun. Even the way he walked in this film, a heavy, purposeful stride that seemed to carry the weight of the entire territory, became a masterclass in physical storytelling. It was as if every step he took in those dusty boots was a testament to the thousands of miles Ethan had traveled in his mind. During the final years of his life, whenever John Wayne was asked about his favorite role, his thoughts always drifted back to the heat of Monument Valley. He knew that Ethan Edwards was his most honest work. It was a role that stripped away the glamour of Hollywood and replaced it with the raw, unvarnished reality of a man who belonged to the wilderness. The film's impact on American culture was so profound that it challenged the traditional narrative of the good guy in the white hat. It showed that the line between hero and villain is often as thin as a desert horizon. For the American public, Wayne became the embodiment of this struggle, a symbol of the strength required to face the darkness, both in the world and within oneself. As we look back at The Searchers today, we see more than just a piece of cinema history. We see the culmination of a man's life work. John Wayne gave everything to this film: his health, his stamina, and his emotional vulnerability. He understood that the story of Ethan Edwards was the story of the American frontier itself, beautiful, terrifying, and ultimately lonely. Even now, in the quiet moments of the film's conclusion, as the door closes and the screen fades to black, the image of Wayne standing in the dust remains burned into our collective memory. He didn't just play a character. He captured a spirit that refuses to die, a spirit that continues to roam the vast, open plains of the American imagination, searching for a peace that may never truly be found. The production of this masterpiece also marked a significant shift in how Native American cultures were portrayed on screen, albeit through the lens of its time. Wayne's interactions with the Navajo tribe during filming were built on mutual respect. He spent hours learning about their traditions, their stories, and their connection to the land. This wasn't for the cameras. It was for his own understanding of the world he was portraying. He wanted the film to feel grounded in the earth, not just in a studio lot. That authenticity is why the film still resonates with such power today. It feels alive, it feels dangerous, and it feels undeniably human. To truly grasp why The Searchers looks and feels so different from any other movie of its era, we have to talk about the eyes of the creator. John Ford chose to shoot this epic in VistaVision, a high-definition process of the time that captured the vastness of the desert with terrifying clarity. Every grain of sand, every bead of sweat on John Wayne's brow, and every distant mountain peak was rendered with a sharpness that made the audience feel like they were breathing the same dry air as the characters. Wayne himself was mesmerized by the dailies. He realized that in this format, he didn't need to overact. The camera could read his very thoughts. This technical mastery allowed Wayne to deliver a performance of quiet, simmering power that had never been seen in a Western before. The color palette of the film was another stroke of genius that Wayne deeply appreciated. The vibrant, saturated oranges of the dunes contrasted against the deep, bruised blues of the twilight skies. Wayne often remarked that the landscape was the third lead actor in the film, right alongside himself and Jeffrey Hunter. He treated the rocks of Monument Valley with a kind of sacred reverence, often arriving on set an hour early just to sit in silence and watch the sun rise over the mesas. He believed that to play a man of the wilderness, he had to let the wilderness sink into his bones. This spiritual connection to the location is what gives the film its haunting, almost supernatural atmosphere. But beyond the cameras and the colors, there was the grueling physical reality of the shoot. Wayne was nearing 50, an age where most leading men were looking for comfortable studio roles. Yet, here he was, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat scenes and spending 10 hours a day in the saddle. There's a famous story from the set where a sudden flash flood threatened to sweep away the equipment. While others scrambled for safety, Wayne was seen helping the crew secure the heavy gear, mud caked onto his face, laughing in the face of the storm. He wasn't just the star, he was the anchor of the entire production. His leadership and refusal to be treated like royalty earned him the undying loyalty of every man and woman on that set. As the years passed, the shadow of Ethan Edwards continued to follow John Wayne. Even when he finally won his Oscar for True Grit years later, many felt it was a delayed tribute to his work in The Searchers. The film became a rite of passage for every young filmmaker in Hollywood. It taught them that a Western could be a psychological thriller, a Greek tragedy, and a visual poem all at once. Wayne's portrayal of a man driven by a singular, destructive purpose served as the blueprint for the anti-hero archetype that would dominate cinema for the next 50 years. Without Ethan Edwards, there would be no Mad Max, no Travis Bickle, and no Man with No Name. In the end, The Searchers remains the ultimate testament to the man we call the Duke. It captured him at the height of his powers, rugged, vulnerable, and infinitely complex. It reminds us that legends aren't born in the comfort of a spotlight. They are forged in the heat, the dust, and the uncompromising silence of the desert. As we watch Wayne walk away into that shimmering horizon one last time, we aren't just watching a character leave the screen. We are watching the passing of an era. John Wayne didn't just play Ethan Edwards. He gave him a soul, and in doing so, he ensured that as long as there is a screen to project upon, the search will never truly end.